Welcome, everybody. We're talking about desire today, okay? Our desire to overeat. I'm going to share with you a little bit about some common misconceptions that we have about desire. I'm going to talk to you about what creates our desire to overeat. And I'll tell you, it's probably not what you think. And I'm going to show you the very step if you want to start to change your desire and decrease your desire to overeat. Now, getting a handle on the desire to overeat, it really is the holy grail for most of my clients. I know I thought it was a holy grail as well when I was trying to figure out this issue for myself, right? People come to me for so many reasons. They might come to me because they're tired of thinking about food all day, or they're frustrated that sometimes they eat too much and they don't know why. And no matter what it is, everyone will say the same thing. They'll say, I wish I didn't desire to eat so much, right? I wish I didn't really like chocolate. I wish I didn't like pasta or cake or whatever it is, right? And if I didn't desire food, it would be so much easier to lose weight. And, wanting to contain your desire, it's not unique to food, right? It's something that people think about in lots of different areas of their life, right? The same can be true for money, right? People who are trying to save money will be frustrated by their desire to spend it. And they'll say, I wish I didn't have this desire to go shopping or buy clothing or go on vacation, whatever it is. But it's that desire to spend it that's making it so hard to save. So all of us can relate to wanting to desire something less. And most people believe the answer is willpower, right? The ability to resist your desire, right? The ability to say no, the ability to turn your desire down. And when we give in, we blame a lack of willpower and we think we just need more of it. We need more discipline, more ability to say no. Now, willpower can work, and you may have used willpower yourself, right? You can say no, you can resist your desire, you can turn your desire down, and it can work for a period of time. You may have even used willpower to lose weight in the past. I know that the very first time I went on a diet, I used willpower the entire time on many diets, actually. It was turning down sweets and pizza and gritting my teeth and white knuckling and just saying no over and over and over again, right? But here's the thing. What we're doing is telling ourselves that we can't have what we want. Our desire is still there. And there are two problems with this. Okay. The first is that when you say no over and over and over again, it's exhausting, right? It wears you out. It takes a lot of mental energy to have your desire keep appearing and pushing it away, keep resisting it, right? And people get really worn out when they're just using willpower. The second problem is that many people, myself included, would spend the time feeling like we're missing out because we still really want the thing that we're telling ourselves we can't have, right? We still have the desire. We still really want chocolate. We're just telling ourselves that we can't have it. So we feel like we're missing out. And for a lot of people, if that goes on long enough, eventually we will give in. Now, people will say, well, that's just the human condition. And I believe this. And I really did believe this for a long time too, right? I thought some people are just born with more desire than others. And it's just kind of, you're just cursed to have that much desire. And you better hope that you have a lot of willpower. And if you don't have willpower, you've got to keep trying to build it, right? You just have to keep trying harder and harder to resist. I really believed that my desire to overeat was just a part of me, right? And it was just something that I had. And it was something that at times I had a lot of, and there was nothing to do about it. I just had to keep resisting, right? So now the good news is that we've got desire totally backwards. It's not fixed. It's not static. It's not something that you can't change. In fact, you can learn how to decrease and reduce your desire. The thing is, no one shows us how. But before I start talking to you about how to actually do that, I want to go back and talk a little bit about what creates our desire in the first place. So here's how I used to understand my desire to eat. I really understood it in two ways. The first was my desire was kind of inexplicable. And so I thought that my desire was this mysterious force that would sometimes appear, and sometimes it made sense when it appeared, right? And other times it really didn't. But the truth was, I was not very good at predicting it, right? Maybe I would be coming home from work and I would be thinking about my day. I would be running through a work project that I was working on. I would be totally focused on something else. And then all of a sudden, this desire would appear, this like incredible desire to eat. And I didn't know where it came from. I didn't know why it appeared, but all of a sudden, there it was. And usually the desire would appear and I would find myself heading to the pantry the minute I got home. Not because I was hungry, but because this desire had just appeared right out of the blue. Now, the other way I understood my desire was that it was really, I would say, created by the food itself, right? So I thought that being around food and being around people that were eating, that was what was creating my desire. It felt like it was driven by these things that were external to me. So, for example, I would decide that maybe I would be going to dinner with my friends, and I knew that I didn't want to eat bread or dessert that night. Okay. And I would tell myself, you know what? I'm not going to eat bread and dessert tonight. It's not a big deal. I'm just going to skip it. And I would feel, pretty good about that decision. And then I would get to the restaurant and I'd be sitting there with my friends and they'd be eating from the bread basket. And I would just feel all this desire in me, right? Like I wanted to eat it too. So it felt as if I got to the restaurant and all of a sudden I was surrounded by people eating and I was surrounded by bread. And that's what was creating my desire. Because half an hour earlier, I didn't have, much desire. And I felt pretty good about my decision to not eat bread or dessert. And it felt like it was driven by this outside force. So now here's the thing. Desire is not this mysterious thing that comes out of nowhere. It's not created by things that are external to you. It's not created by food, which, by the way, is really good news, right? It's created by your thoughts, right? I talk a lot about the think, feel, act cycle. And it's a cycle that really explains why we act the way we do and why we feel the way we do. So the think, feel, act cycle works exactly in the order that I say it, right? You think a thought, which creates a feeling or an emotion. And when you have that feeling or emotion, that drives an action. Okay, really simple. Now, in this case, the action would be eating bread and dessert. But why do we have that bread and dessert in the first place? Because we have a feeling, because we have an emotion. Now, feeling is desire. Okay, so desire is the feeling in the think, feel, act cycle. Now, it's not just an action and a feeling in the cycle. There's the first part, and that explains why we have the desire to eat. There is always a thought before that creates it. We are always thinking a thought beforehand that creates it. Now, when I was starting out with this work, it really didn't feel that way, that it worked this way, right? It really felt to me that my desire to eat either came out of nowhere and was kind of unpredictable, or it was definitely being created by being in the presence of food. So it did not feel like it worked this way. Even though I intellectually understood the think, feel, act cycle, it just didn't resonate at first. Okay. Now, here's why. First, you probably aren't used to paying attention to your thoughts. I know I wasn't, right? My thoughts were just kind of, background noise, right? They weren't something that I paid a lot of attention to or tuned into on a regular basis. In fact, a lot of the times I was just trying to tune out my thoughts because there was so much negative thinking in there, right? I didn't really want to listen to what I was thinking. And the second reason was because no one taught me this cycle, right? For a very, very long time in my life. So I was not used to thinking that my thoughts created my feelings or that my actions were driven by the way I was feeling. So I didn't have this cycle as a reference point to pay attention to, right? So now here's what's happening. You learn to desire food at certain times, right? For example, maybe when you get home from work, maybe when you're bored, maybe when you're heading out to a party, or maybe you're just watching TV, right? We learn to desire eating at certain times. And we also learn to desire having food as a way to feel better. Okay. So we might teach ourselves that when stress or anxiety or insecurity or awkwardness or anger or some sort of negative emotion appears, we teach ourselves that eating is a way to feel better. Okay. And what happens is that in either of these situations, with enough repetition, enough times that you are eating at the same time, you are eating in the same situation, your desire becomes a habit. Now, here's the thing. You know that your desire is learned, right? You know that you taught it to yourself. It's not just something that you have, because there was a time in your life, like when you came home from school or when you ate dinner and when you went to restaurants, when you went to parties and when you watched TV, and you did not desire to overeat because you didn't overeat, right? So it was something that you learned. And if you learned to desire overeating, you can also learn how not to desire it if you are given the steps to do that. So how do you start to decrease your desire? If you habitualized your desire, first you need to bring your unconscious thinking back to the surface, okay? Because we know that desire does not just appear out of the blue. Desire isn't created by things external to us. There's always a thought first. That's how the cycle works. So you have to bring that thinking back to the surface, okay? And it feels like that thinking isn't even there right now because you've habitualized it. Now, a lot of people that I work with will want to skip this step. They will say, okay, so if my thoughts create desire, can't we start thinking differently? Can't I just start thinking I don't desire food? And here's the thing, you can't because it will not be believable. When I started this process, if I had just told myself over and over again, I don't desire chocolate, I don't want cake, I don't want this, I just don't want it. I mean, maybe I could have resisted. Maybe that would have helped me with willpower, but it certainly would not have done anything to reduce my desire. My desire was still there. And it was still there because I was not accessing the thought that was initially creating it. So you have to understand what's creating your desire in the first place if you want to change it. So how do you bring thinking that has become unconscious back to the surface? Okay. The answer is that you have to build in a pause. And this is how you do it. You need to wait for your desire to eat to appear. You need to wait for that desire to appear and then pause. You need to delay eating, delay the reward, right? The reward is having food, and that delay will allow you to surface your thinking. Now, the reason that this works is because you aren't used to doing this, right? You're used to doing the opposite. You're used to having a desire appear and then shortly thereafter, fulfilling that desire, giving yourself the reward, eating the chocolate, right? That's what you're used to doing. And because it happens so quickly, sometimes, like you're at a restaurant and you just grab the bread, right? You come home from work and you just head into the pantry. It happens so quickly, there is no time to notice any thinking. And that's what the pause is there for. That's why you need to delay, so that your thinking can start to reveal itself. So once your desire to eat has appeared, pause or delay for at least the first 30 minutes. Okay, try 30 minutes before having the food. Okay, you won't always need to wait this long, but at first, especially when you're not used to doing this, not used to this technique, it might take a little while for the thoughts to surface, right? But here's the thing, you can't distract yourself, right? A lot of people will hear pause and delay, and they think, oh, okay, fine. I'll just set 30 minutes on my phone and start a timer, and I'll just wait till the timer goes off and then I can have my food. It doesn't work that way, okay? It doesn't work like that because you need to stay present, right? The whole point is that you're trying to notice what thinking comes up, and you can't do that if you're not present. So do not distract yourself, okay? You want to notice what's coming up. Don't try to change it. Don't try to change your thinking or control your thinking or tell yourself you shouldn't be thinking this way, okay? Don't judge it. Just let your thoughts surface. You might even want to try writing it down. I actually recommend that you write it down. And you can do this even if you're out with people, right? Everybody has cell phones, and just send a little text message to yourself with whatever thought appears. So you want to let your thoughts surface. You want to watch them and notice them without trying to change them. And then ultimately, you're going to replace them. And that's how you start to change your desire. But before you can change your desire, you have to first understand how it works. And to understand how it works, you have to use this process, right? You have to pause, and you have to let your thoughts come to the surface. Now, this can sound simple, right? Pausing, okay, it can sound pretty simple, but I promise it will take a little bit of practice. When I first started this work myself, here are some of the thoughts that I noticed, just to give you a sense of what the thoughts can look like. But keep in mind, yours might be totally unique to you. What I'm about to list here is not the full spectrum of thoughts that you can have that create desire, just mine. Okay, so here are some of mine. Big one. I want something crunchy. I deserve a treat. I need a break. I had a rough day. I'm bored. I can't deal with this feeling right now. I need to feel better. I just feel so awkward. Eating will just make it feel better. Okay. It's just, this party's no fun without food. One bite won't hurt. Just tonight. It's not a big deal. Oh, I like it. It tastes good. Ooh, I love a fancy dessert. Everyone else is having some. People might notice if I'm not. It's normal to overeat. I don't want to miss out. It's a celebration. Why not? Who cares? And screw it. So these were all the thoughts that I noticed that were fueling my desire. And once I started paying attention to them, it became easier to notice when they appeared. I started to notice for some of these thoughts, I was thinking them all the time, right? They were coming up quite a bit. And the more I thought them, the more my desire grew. So this really is the very first step in figuring out how to reduce your desire. And when I started doing it, I had no idea that my desire was created by my thoughts. I really believed that it was this mysterious force that sometimes appeared, or it was created by being in the presence of food. I really thought that's how it worked for so many years, decades, right? But once I tried this technique and I started to pause and delay so that I had time to surface my thinking, all of a sudden, I saw how I was thinking all these thoughts that were creating desire. And when I realized that I was the one thinking these thoughts, that it wasn't this mysterious force, it wasn't the food itself, all of a sudden I felt so much more in control, right? Because if they were thoughts that I was thinking, if they were thoughts that I had learned to habitualize, they were thoughts that I could also work to change. And I said this earlier, it really is the best news ever, ever, that food is not what's creating your desire. Because when I thought food was what was creating my desire, I also thought that the way not to desire it was to remove myself, right? Was to sequester myself from it. I had to keep away from it. And I used to joke sometimes that everything would be so much easier if I could just live in a cabin in the woods by myself, right? If I could just be away from all these temptations, it would be so much easier. But what I realized doing this work is that I didn't need to remove myself. I didn't need to stay away from certain things because food itself was not creating my desire. What I had to do was pay attention to all those thoughts that I had when I was around food, right? It was all the thoughts I was thinking that was creating my desire. And the reason that I don't desire overeating now is because I have a completely different set of thoughts about food. Those thoughts that were so automatic for so long in my life are not the same thoughts that I have anymore. The other thing that I realized is that all my efforts to rein in my eating were, hit or miss because I assumed that food was running the show. I assumed that food was the thing creating my desire and I didn't have any control. When I started paying attention to my thinking and understanding that the think, feel, act cycle was behind everything, that my desire was being created by my thoughts, I realized how much control I had to actually change my desire. All right, friends, so let's recap here. Your desire is not fixed. It's not a mysterious force. It's not outside your control. It's created by your thinking. And if you want to start the process of learning how to change your desire, the first thing you need to do is surface that thinking. And you do that by pausing. You do that by not immediately responding to the desire to eat, but pausing and allowing your thoughts to surface. Noticing your thoughts is going to make such a big difference because it will show you how much you are creating your desire and that it's not created outside of you. It's not created by this mysterious force. And that will make you feel so much more in control. Okay. So let me know how it goes. I'm always really curious to hear from you how these different techniques are working. I love hearing from my followers. And so if you want to send me an email, if you want to let me know how it's going, or if you have an idea for a topic that you want me to talk about, you can send me an email at Christine@christinerucker.com. My friends, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you all next week.